Alright, you've dimmed the lights. You're cozy. Hopefully not eating. Because where we're going, it smells like damp velvet, gout cream, and the faintest whiff of cousin kissing. You wake up in a stone-cold castle. Drafty halls, everything candlelit. Your corset is 2 sizes too tight. And your husband, oh, he's your uncle, or your nephew, or both. Welcome to European royalty. Let's start with the OG of inbred elegance. Juana of Castile, aka Juana la Loca. Now, people called her mad. But let's be honest, your family tree looked more like a family wreath. You'd probably lose a few screws too. Juana was the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella Yup, the same ones who financed Columbus, and they thought the best way to keep power in the family was to keep the family in the family, over generations, repeatedly. Juana's genetics. Think of them like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. By the time she came around, there wasn't much ink left. She married Philip the handsome. Spoiler alert. Was a stretch, but let's give her credit. She loved him obsessively. Like, carry his corpse around for months obsessively. Yep, that happened. But was that true madness or the slow burn side effect of centuries of DNA playing the world's worst game of Uno? And then there's Maria Anna of Austria. Sweet girl, a Habsburg through and through, which meant she came with a jawline so prominent it could cut glass, and a gene pool so shallow it made a puddle look deep. At just 14, Maria Anna was married off to her uncle. Not uncle-like, fun guy who brings you snacks at family parties. No, her literal uncle, the kind you share a grandparent with. She gave birth to a son, Charles II of Spain, also known as the Bewitched. Charles had a jaw you could park a carriage in. He couldn't speak clearly, couldn't chew, and his autopsy revealed he had a heart the size of a peppercorn. Doctors didn't even know where to start. If a body could be a cautionary tale, he was it. But Maria Anna, she did what every royal woman was expected to do: smile through the deformities, bear the airs, and pretend like marrying your mum's brother was totally fine. Now, here's where things get extra gothic. You'd think, with all that status, wealth, and gold leaf ceilings, royal women had it made. But the truth? Most were prisoners in silk. They had no say in who they married, what they ate, or even when they could go outside. Their worth was tied to their womb, and that womb better produce sons who could walk, talk, and preferably not drool on the throne. So, here's a question for you. What happens when a royal line gets so tangled, so genetically warped, that it starts collapsing from the inside? Because we're just getting started. And trust me, there's one woman whose story makes all the others look almost normal. She lived in a palace, was worshipped like a goddess, but couldn't escape the rot in her own bloodline. She was the last of her kind, and her face wasn't quite human. You're still here, brave soul, or maybe just morbidly curious. Either way good, because now we head east, past the velvet-drenched courts of Spain and into the sunburnt, incense-thick temples of ancient Egypt, where royalty wasn't just divine, it was divinity. Yes, that Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor eyeliner, seductress of emperors, whispered about in poetry and TikToks alike. But beneath the coal and drama, she was a walking, talking, genetic roll of the dice. Let's clear something up. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was Macedonian Greek, descended from Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. The Ptolemies were like, we're too royal for outsiders. We'll just marry each other. And they meant it. Brothers married sisters like it was a cute seasonal tradition. Uncles married nieces, Some scholars even think Cleopatra's own parents were siblings. The papyrus gets kind of vague when things get that awkward. Now imagine you're Cleopatra, born into a royal house where birthday gifts include thrones, knives, and subtle threats of assassination. Your family dinners, more Game of Thrones than Olive Garden. You walk the palace halls in sandals made of gold thread. Perfumed oils drift through the air, lotus myrrh, and just a hint of paranoia, because everyone wants your crown, including your own brother husbands. Yes, plural. Cleopatra married 2 of her brothers. Ptolemy XIII tried to have her killed. Ptolemy XIV mysteriously died after which Cleopatra made her son Corula, a son she had with Julius Caesar. Because when your family tree is more of a bonsai, you look outside the dynasty for a little DNA refresh. But let's not pretend she escaped the curse. Her line, the Ptolemies, were brilliant and brutal, but by Cleopatra's time, they were unraveling. Madness, power struggles, genetic instability, they were crumbling under the weight of their own obsession with purity. In trying to preserve their divine blood, they ended up diluting their grip on reality. Cleopatra was the last of her line. After her death, whether by snakebite or political maneuvering, the dynasty ended. Her children vanished into history. The empire gone. So here's what we're left with. A queen worshipped as a goddess, whose legacy has survived for millennia, and yet whose bloodline, twisted and tangled through generations of incest, couldn't survive a single century past her. And it makes you wonder, what's the real price of power if the cost is your own humanity? But hold up, don't breathe easy just yet, because we haven't even touched the Habsburg who married his niece, or the woman whose jaw was so contorted, portraits had to be edited to hide it. And then there's the one whose bloodline was so cursed, her body literally rejected itself. Oh yeah, things are about to get weirder. You ever look at a family reunion and think, yikes, too many people here share a face? Welcome to the Habsburgs. The dynasty's so committed to keeping it in the family that even their portraits look like someone copied and pasted the same 5 features, then dragged them slightly off-center. And at the twisted heart of it all, Margaret Teresa of Spain. You don't know her name, but you've seen her. That eerie little girl in the middle of Las Meninas Velázquez's masterpiece, surrounded by handmaidens glowing in silk, her hair puffed out like a royal marshmallow. But look closer. She's single quotes, arse. You can't quite say why. Maybe it's the huge forehead, or the fact her face looks like it's trying to collapse inward. Now, here's the kicker. Margaret's parents were uncle and niece, not second cousins, not even first cousins, uncle and niece. And yet, nobody batted an eyelash. In fact, that marriage was considered strategic, because what's more romantic than shared grandparents, right? As a result, Margaret's family tree, it was basically a wilted stick. Her father, Philip IV, passed on some complicated genes. Her mother, Mariana of Austria, was both niece and cousin to multiple people at once. Don't even try to chart it, your whiteboard will catch fire. And what do you get when you mix that much genetic copy-paste? You get children who don't thrive. You get brittle bones, cognitive issues, severe jaw deformities, and in Margaret's case a tragic, brief life. She was married off at 15, to wait for her uncle again, because why break tradition now? She died at 21, after bearing 4 children in 6 years. Only one survived infancy. Now, if your head's spinning, imagine being her. A teenager, paraded like a fragile doll, used to cement a dying bloodline. Her marriage was seen as the last chance to save the Habsburg dynasty. No pressure, right? And yet here's the haunting part. Even with all the wealth, the palaces, the handmaidens, and the silk, Margaret's world was a gilded cage, one she was born into, one she couldn't escape. The real horror isn't just the inbreeding, it's how normal it all was. Expected, celebrated. Because what do you do when the system says the greatest honor is marrying someone who looks like your reflection? And if Margaret was the tragic flower of the Habsburg line, her cousin, the final bloom, was the one who withered while still on the throne. A man who would become the last Habsburg king of Spain. But before we talk about him, let's take a moment. Imagine being born into royalty and realizing the very thing that makes you special is also what's destroying you from the inside out. So now, we arrive at the last gasp, the final echo of the royal experiment in keeping bloodlines to pure, the last broken link in the golden chain. Charles II of Spain, son of Margaret, Teresa's uncle and cousin, and possibly himself, if we're being honest. They called him El Hechizado, the Bewitched, as if black magic could explain what centuries of cousin-on-cousin matrimony had already made inevitable. You're Charles. You wake up in a palace larger than some cities. Servants bow, priests hover, courtiers pretend. And yet you can't walk properly, can't speak clearly, can't eat without choking. Your jaw juts out like a caricature. Your tongue's too big for your mouth, and your mind floats somewhere between childlike and vacant. Your doctors whisper that your body is without substance, that your blood is thin, your spine warped, your heart shrunken. At age 3, you still haven't spoken a word. At 6, you can't stand unassisted. By 20, they know you will never produce an heir. You are the dead end. But you're still the king. You sit on a throne that crushes you under its weight. And your mother, yes, the same Mariana of Austria who was also your auntie's, the one truly ruling behind curtains, with advisors and rosaries, praying for a miracle that won't come. Because it turns out, when you fold a family tree this many times, eventually it breaks. Charles II is the grim finale to generations of aristocratic tunnel vision. His autopsy listed a single testicle, black as coal, and a head full of water. His body was 39, his organs centuries old. He died without a child, without a legacy, and with his death, the Spanish Habsburgs collapsed under the sheer weight of their own genetic ambition. And maybe now you're wondering, how many other royal bloodlines danced on the edge of the same knife? How many queens wore crowns heavy with secrets? How much of history was shaped not by power or politics, but by DNA unraveling quietly in royal bedrooms? Well, let's just say we haven't even touched the woman who ruled an empire while her body was disintegrating from within. Or the duchess who refused to marry because she knew exactly what was waiting in her blood. But that's a story for another firelit night, when the candles flicker and the portraits start to look back.